Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today I'm delighted to read another prosperity teaching from Catherine Ponder, the great New Thought teacher. This comes from her book, How to Live a Prosperous Life. And today we're discussing praying and prospering. One thing that Catherine Ponder taught very well was how to use prayer and affirmation to create prosperity in your life. And these teachings inspire me. They motivate me. They make me to believe that these things are possible. They remind me of the prayers I've had in the past that led to prosperity. And she had an amazing way of writing about different situations and, in particular, relating it to teachings from the Bible, very much like Joseph Murphy and Neville Goddard. Catherine Ponder, Pray and Prosper. You are prosperous to the degree that you are experiencing peace, health, and plenty in your world. Prayer can help you experience peace, health, and plenty because prayer is man's steady effort to know God, and God is the source of all man's good. Thus, in prayer, man makes common union with God and His infinite goodness. It is wonderful, too, to realize that prayer is natural to man and not a strange, mysterious practice. Man has always prayed and always will. In his primitive understanding, man prayed to the sun and stars, to the fire and water, to animals and plants, to images and myths. Later, as the intellect of man evolved, his ideas changed, and he conceived of God as a personal deity with sentiments and emotions, a God with human traits, a God man felt had to be appeased by sacrificial offerings and assailed with pleas for favor. Many of the writers of the Old Testament had this concept of God. Still later, mankind began to come out of a primitive, intellectual understanding of God into a spiritual awareness that God is not a hostile being with a split personality of good and evil, but a God of love, the unchanging principle of supreme good, both within and around mankind. Methods of prayer that have evolved, expanded, and improved now make it easy to pray and commune with God. Brother Lawrence, 16th century French lay brother, who believed greatly in the power of prayer, described his method of prayer as practicing the presence of God. One biographer has written that Brother Lawrence's one single aim was to bring about a conscious personal union between himself and God, and that he took the shortest cut he could find to accomplish it. And what was his shortcut to God? Brother Lawrence described it thus: "The time of business does not, with me, differ from the time of prayer, and in the noise and clutter of my kitchen, while several persons are at the same time calling for different things, I possess God in as great tranquility as if I were upon my knees at the Blessed Sacrament. At any moment, in the midst of any occupation, under any circumstances, the soul that wants to know God can practice the presence. The one who understands the true nature of God as a rich, loving Father soon realizes that the person who truly prays is bound to succeed because he attunes himself to the richest, most powerful, most successful force in the universe. Jesus knew this when he promised, 'All things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive.' Tennyson knew it when he wrote, 'More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of.' Many people have not employed the power of prayer for prosperity and success because they have gotten the erroneous idea that it is wrong to pray for material things. However, as many of the biblical promises indicate, it is right and proper that we should pray for the things we need. We live in a rich, friendly universe that desires to fulfill our needs, and prayer is but an act of faith that helps open channels for the fulfillment of our needs. The Bible is filled with examples of prayer and requests for needful things. Abraham prayed for a son. David prayed for his household. Elijah prayed for rain. Ezekiel prayed for the people. Hannah prayed for a son. Jehoshaphat prayed for deliverance. Jeremiah prayed for freedom from a famine. Nehemiah prayed for protection. Solomon prayed for wisdom. On a number of occasions, Jesus prayed definitely for specific things. Praying for things is not the only form of prayer, but if we first begin to pray by praying for things, as most of us do, we will learn the power of prayer, and we will then doubtless develop our prayer power further. Basically, there are 4 types of prayer: general prayer, the prayer of denial, the prayer of affirmation, and the prayer of meditation and silence. At various times, it is good to know and use the various types of prayer to meet life's various needs. General prayer is the act of praying to God as a loving, understanding Father in your own way. It can be done on your knees or more comfortably. It can be expressed through words or silently. You can have a prayer book before you, or you can browse throughout your Bible, dwell upon favorite passages and promises. A simple, effective way to begin a general prayer is to take the Lord's Prayer and ponder each line of it silently or aloud. The ancients believed that the Lord's Prayer was all-powerful, and they often declared it over and over from 12 to 15 times without stopping. At various times in the past, at the shrine of Lords, some of those seeking healing were taught to pray the Lord's Prayer 15 times. While they entered the waters, from my own experiences, I know that deep spiritual power is contacted, brought alive, and released when one prays the Lord's Prayer over and over, either silently or verbally. I have known a number of instances where hard conditions in business affairs, human relations problems, and health conditions were adjusted when one or more persons prayed the Lord's Prayer from 12 to 15 times daily. Another powerful way to make contact with spiritual power in general prayer is to take the name Jehovah from the Old Testament or the name Jesus Christ from the New Testament, and verbally or silently declare the name over and over. A housewife told me that her husband became very successful in business after a number of previous failures. When she began daily to call upon and dwell upon the name Jehovah in her prayer times. As for the power of calling on the name Jesus Christ, Charles Fillmore has written, "The mightiest vibration is set up by speaking of the name Jesus Christ. This is the name that is named for above all rule and authority, the name above all names, holding in itself all power in heaven and in earth. It is the name that has power to mold the universal substance, and when spoken, it sets forces into activity that bring results. Whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you. If ye shall ask anything in my name, that will I do." An immigrant once related to me how he was released from a concentration camp, where he had been badly treated after he began daily calling upon the name Jesus Christ. A Christian missionary he met in prison suggested that he pray in this way. At the time, he was supposed to be near death from the many beatings he had received, but instead he began to recover. As he continued dwelling upon this name in his prayers, it was as though a mighty power went to work for him. In a short time, he was released, without explanation, from the concentration camp, even though many of his fellow prisoners were still held and mistreated. As he continued dwelling upon the name of Jesus Christ, further events occurred so that he was able to come to America, where he has lived for a number of happy, grateful years. Another powerful way to pray is simply to declare, as in the Lord's Prayer, "Thy will be done," since God's will for us is always unlimited good. A musician was out of work. The band with which he worked had been asked to go to Florida. Upon arrival, the promised job did not materialize, and all the members of the band were stranded. This man prayed, "Father, let thy supreme good will be done in this matter." One day, he and the other members of the band were at Union headquarters, hoping that something would turn up, when their agent telephoned from New York to say he had located a job for them in Texas. Another form of general prayer is the prayer of release, of letting go and letting God. When one has done all, it is good to stand in faith through the prayer of release. A woman was in her farm home in a dense forest area, her husband away on a business trip, when a forest fire broke out. The fire raged all around her property. Being surrounded, she could not leave. She prayed, "Father, it's up to you to save me." our house and property. There's nothing more I can do. She then affirmed, I let go and let God have his perfect way. With a feeling of peace, she released the matter and retired for the night. The next morning, she awoke early to find only a few stumps still burning. The fire had burned right up to her property lines and stopped. It seemed a miracle. Later in the day, when the forest ranger arrived, he said, there is only one explanation for this. You must have been praying. You may feel that your prayer experience have not been particularly satisfying or powerful, or that nothing much has ever happened as a result of your prayers. If so, perhaps it is because you need to develop the other 3 types of prayer along with general prayer. The second type is one that all business people should know about because they can use it so helpfully as they go about their business. It is the prayer of denial. Many people cringe at the word denial, thinking that its only meaning is restriction or limitation, but the word deny also means to reject as a false conception. And prayers of denial are for that purpose, to reject as a false conception that which is not satisfying or good in one's life experiences. Many hundreds of years before the time of Jesus, the Egyptians used the power of denial through the sign of the cross, indicating a crossing out or blotting out of apparent evil. Prayers of denial are your no prayers. They help you to refuse to accept things as they are, to dissolve your negative thoughts about them, and thus make way for something better. Prayers of denial are expressed in those attitudes of mind that say, I will not put up with or tolerate this experience as necessary, lasting, or right. I refuse to accept things as they are. I mentally claim my whole good, knowing that even now it is manifesting. How much mankind needs to use prayers of denial? So many people lead a pygmy existence of fear, compromise, and dissatisfaction when they might be living lives of gigantic good, if they only knew how to say no to less than the best. Usually prayers of denial should be followed up by prayers of the third type, prayers of affirmation or yes attitudes. It is good to follow up thoughts of what you do not want with thoughts of what you do want to follow up. No, I will not accept this with yes, I will accept this or something better. Jesus said, let your speech be yea, yea, nay, nay. Prayers of denial and affirmation are as much attitudes of mind as they are formal methods of prayer. We can express them silently or verbally wherever we are, whether as formal prayers or informally as attitudes of mind. Charles Fillmore has written that concentrated attention of the mind on an idea of any kind is equal to prayer, and will make available the spiritual principle that is its source in proportion to the intensity and continuity of the mental effort. In other words, our attitudes are forms of prayer. The prophet Hosea went into more detail to show us how to use denial and affirmation prayer power. He advised, take with you words and return unto Jehovah. Say unto him, take away all iniquity and accept that which is good. In any situation that is dissatisfying, we can deny its power by declaring to a loving Father, take away all iniquity. We should then follow up with the affirmation, I will accept only that which is good. To dissolve especially troublesome problems or hard conditions, it is necessary to concentrate fully upon prayers of denial before giving much attention to affirmative prayers. I once knew a very negative, disagreeable, complaining person with whom I had to work. As far as she was concerned, nothing was right in her world or in the world generally. She was in ill health. She was always battling out things with her family. She was not properly appreciated or compensated on her job. Life was a mess. I offered her some literature on successful living. She liked it. She said sometime when she felt better, got through fighting with her family, had schemed properly to get a raise, she planned to read it. In the meantime, she did not care to be distracted from her practice of negative thinking. The prayer of denial I used was, there is nothing but God's love and harmony at work here. I hoped that she would subconsciously attune herself to these ideas of love and harmony, let them work for her. In a short time, she decided to take another job and left. The secretary who replaced her was one of the most joyous, harmonious people I have ever met, and delightful to work with. Thus, love and harmony appeared when all else was denied. So many persons get the erroneous idea that somebody else can keep their good from them. They go through life thinking this. Prayers of denial can dissolve this false belief and the lack that it causes. Declare, I dissolve in my own mind and in the minds of all others any idea that my own good can be withheld from me. That which is for my highest good now comes to me through God's grace, and I welcome it. This prayer of denial can also clear up old conditions of the past where one's good seemed to have been taken away or withheld. Another prayer of denial that is helpful when there seems to be barriers or obstacles on your pathway is all barriers and obstacles to my divinely given good are now dissolved with God's help. After using this statement for a time, you will find that whereas before people, situations, and conditions seem to work against you, everything will shift, everything will begin working for you. Still another powerful prayer of denial for clearing away negation is, the power of God is working through me to free me from every negative influence. Nothing can hold me in bondage. All power is given unto me for good in mind, body, and affairs, and I rightly use it here and now. If people only knew to say no to unhappy experiences rather than to bow down to them. The Hebrews were warned not to bow down to or worship false idols or gods. The gods of unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and limitation are among the major heathen gods of today. To dissolve their appearance in your life, declare often, there is nothing for me to fear. God's spirit of good is at work and divine results are now coming forth. When you use denials, you erase, dissolve, unform. You should then make firm new good through affirmation, the third type of prayer. A traveling salesman who was heavily in debt attempted to get a loan from a bank to pay off his debts. Because he lacked adequate collateral, he was not able to get the loan. He began to affirm, God prospers me now. Within a few days, he made a large sale and was able to pay off all his debts. With ample money left over, a businesswoman who was greatly depressed went to a mental hospital for treatment. While doctors were still taking tests to determine the proper treatment, a relative began to affirm daily, perfect love casts out fear and depression. Within a short time, this woman's depression had dissolved, and she was released and went back to work. Several years ago, a retired sea captain told me that he was healed of alcoholism after he began using the power of affirmation. He affirmed daily, I am being healed with God's help. After a time, he began affirming, praise God, I am healed. His whole series of affirmative prayers, which produced a perfect healing, can be found in the Unity pamphlet, A Healing Meditation for Alcoholics. The fourth type of prayer is that of meditation and the silence. It is often in silent, contemplative prayer that we feel the presence of God's goodness most strongly. In this form of prayer, we take few prayerful words and think about them silently. As we think about them, they grow in our minds as expanded ideas, moving us to a feeling of peaceful assurance and right ideas, and perhaps later to right action. If nothing seems to happen in meditation, we have nevertheless made our minds receptive to God's good, which may manifest later. The psalmist knew the power of the prayer of meditation and silence when he declared, be still and know that I am God. A businessman recently stated that a restless, sleepless night turned into restful sleep after he began meditating upon the psalmist's words. Dr. Alexis Carroll has described the power of meditation. When our activity is set toward a precise end, our mental and organic functions become completely harmonized. The unification of the desires, the application of the mind to a single purpose produce a sort of inner peace. Man integrates himself by meditation just as by action. Jesus was constantly going up into the mountain to pray. After much activity, he often retreated for a time of silent prayer and meditation to reintegrate himself. The prophet Haggai pointed out the power of prayer and meditation to the Hebrews after their return from Babylonian exile. They found the holy city in ruins, poverty-stricken, and surrounded by hostile tribes. Haggai pointed out the futility of trying to produce outer results without first making inner contact with God. Consider your ways. Ye have sown much, and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm, and he that earneth wages to put into a bag with holes. Then Jehovah told them, Consider your ways. Go up to the mountain, and bring wood, and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it. In metaphysical language, the word mountain means a high place in thought, feeling, and prayer. When one gets back to that high place of peace and power in silent prayer and meditation, one accumulates wood, the substance of new thought, new energy, new power, new ideas, and then is able to build the house or produce the outer visible results of good. Moses, Elijah, and Jesus, among others, proved the practical result getting power of silent meditation. It was at the conclusion of Moses' 40-day period of prayer in the wilderness that he went forth and supervised the construction of the tabernacle, the Hebrews' first building of formal worship. Moses even received specific instructions about the rich, beautiful furnishings for this tabernacle from Jehovah during his 40-day meditation period. At the conclusion of Elijah's 40 days of prayer, he knew that Elisha was to become the next prophet of Israel. He also anointed a new king over Syria and one over Israel to clear up the political confusion of that era. And it was after Jesus had prayed silently and meditated for 40 days that he began to preach, heal, and teach. H. Emil Cady has described the power of meditation. Every man must take time daily for quiet meditation. In daily meditation lies the secret of power. You must be so busy with the doing, the outgoing of love to help others, which is unselfish and godlike as far as it goes, that you find no time to go apart. But the command, or rather the invitation, is, Come ye yourselves apart and rest a while. And it is the only way in which you will ever gain definite knowledge, true wisdom, newness of experience, steadiness of purpose, or power to meet the unknown, which must come in all daily life. She also tells how to meditate. When you withdraw from the world of meditation, let it not be to think of yourself or your failures, but invariably to get all your thoughts centered on God and on your relation to the Creator and Upholder of the universe. Let all the little annoying cares and anxieties go for a while, and by effort, if need be, turn your thoughts away from them to some of the simplest words of the Nazarene or of the psalmist. Think of some truth statement, be it ever so simple. No person, unless he has practiced it, can know how it quiets all physical nervousness, all fear, all oversensitiveness, all the little raspings of everyday life. Just this hour of calm, quiet waiting alone with God. Never let it be an hour of bondage, but always one of restfulness. The psalmist described meditation and silence as the secret place of the Most High. Jesus spoke of it as going into the closet and shutting the door. Carlyle wrote, Consider the significance of silence. It is boundless, never by meditating to be exhausted, unspeakably profitable to thee. Cease that chaotic hubbub, wherein thy soul runs to waste, to confused, suicidal dislocation and stupor. Out of silence comes thy strength. After meditating upon God's goodness and being renewed, uplifted, and inspired with new ideas, there is an effective way to utilize meditation and silence in relation to your problems. Take any problem or question and meditate on this thought. There is a divine solution to this situation. I accept and claim the divine solution in this situation now. The mental energy spent in worry and battling with the problem will then be used constructively to give you the right ideas and right solutions. When you have a problem, if you will go into silent meditation and contemplate its solution from a divine standpoint, you'll be shown what to do. An engineering executive has told me of his use of meditation as a problem solver. When his employees run into difficulty on an engineering project, he goes into his office, silently meditates on the problem from a divine standpoint, and inevitably gets the right ideas for its solution. One of his junior executives once asked him how he managed to always have the right answer just when it was needed most. When he explained his simple method, the junior executive skeptically asked, "You mean you just meditate on the solution rather than fight the problem?" The engineering executive believes that the world is full of harried, tense people who have become that way through trying to solve problems in outer ways. Let the practice of prayer in one of the four forms help you solve life's problems in inner, true ways. Let communion with God and His goodness open the way for greater peace, health, and plenty in you and in your world. The writer of the third epistle of John might have been describing the prospering power of prayer when he declared, "Beloved, I pray that in all things thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." So through the podcast and the thousands of episodes I've produced, I have had dozens of episodes where we have focused on prayer. Be sure to check out the prayer playlist. Offhand, we have the Eric Butterworth episode, The Forgotten Art of Prayer. We have the Affirmation and Prayers of Edgar Cayce. We have the Ancient Secret to the Power of Prayer, where I discuss Rosicrucian techniques for praying. I have an episode from Joseph Murphy called Techniques of Prayer, as well as Prayers of Divine Surplus by Ernest Holmes, an episode called Prayer as Listening, an amazing episode where we go over the Lord's Prayer by reading the words of the great Emmett Fox. Another one is How to Use the Power of Prayer by Joseph Murphy, or Walter and Lau Russell, The Secret of Prayer. Even Israel Regardie, The Art of True Healing, The Unlimited Power of Prayer. There's Pray and Grow Rich, another one by Joseph Murphy. The amazing lecture by Neville Goddard called The Secret of Praying, and perhaps my favorite, The Art of Believing, which is a book about prayer that Neville Goddard wrote. And I read that one. I recommend all of them, and I have them in my prayer playlist. And so it's important to understand prayer. There's some things we can take from all of these discussions about prayer that you can apply right now. And the important thing I want you to take from this episode is that prayer is not something that you learn in the Bible. It is something that you're doing every day, all the time, and you don't even know it. It's more than just affirmations and meditation. It encompasses everything. Prayer is our relationship and experience of God. That is how we express it. When we're younger, we're told about this godlike figure, and we imagine this God billions of miles away or above the planet in a big throne with a long gray beard, and we are always praying to someone else. We're praying to a being that is outside of ourselves, and we're told that it's sacrilegious to pray in any other way. Neville Goddard teaches that the secret of praying is that we're praying to ourselves, that we are the being that we are praying to. At the same time, it's important to note that Neville Goddard still says that it's okay to pray to an entity outside of yourself, but understand that the power is within you. We learn many different aspects of prayer just from this lecture. The important is there are 4 different forms and types of prayer. There's the general prayer, there's the prayer of denial, the prayer of affirmation, and the prayer of meditation and silence. I've always said that meditation and silence is separate from prayer, but really it is the same thing. The big difference in our common understanding of prayer is that when we're praying, we're speaking with that entity, that higher power, within or without, however you want to believe it. When we're meditating, we're listening. We're listening to that entity. And so in any good conversation, you would both want to talk and at the same time listen. And if you've ever been in a relationship where someone does all the talking but never does any of the listening, I'm sure that it was a difficult relationship. And we have a relationship with God, with this inner, higher, divine power that is able to create universes and worlds and multiverses and galaxies, all of it. And so we must come to grips with both aspects of prayer. It is a conversation. It is a requesting and asking. and it's also an affirmation or denial. And each of these aspects are very critical to understanding how prayer works. There's the general prayer, and there's some great recommendations here, and I promise I'm going to try it after reading this chapter. Say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who've trespassed against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I've memorized that at a very early age. Say that 15 times, and wonderful things will happen. It is very protective. It is Kabbalic. It covers all the different areas and evokes both your inner power and your connection to God. It allows you to forgive. It's based in each of the chakras, which can be applied to that prayer, and I recommend saying it. The great thing that Catherine Ponder teaches is that you can focus on a single idea, on a single affirmation, and it will work. She teaches about denials before teaching about affirmations. But notice how she words her denials, and she spends quite a bit talking about denials. These are no prayers. They help you to refuse to accept things as they are, to dissolve your negative thoughts about them, and make way for something better. I will not put up with or tolerate this experience as necessary, lasting, or right. I refuse to accept things as they are. I mentally claim my whole good, knowing that even now it is manifesting. You say, I dissolve in my own mind and in the minds of all others any idea that my own good can be withheld from me. That which is for my highest good now comes to me through God's grace, and I welcome it. So you can begin these with I dissolve. That's a good starting point if you're crafting the denial in the way that Catherine Ponder has taught. You can also say, the power of God is working through me to free me from every negative influence. Nothing can hold me in bondage. All power is given unto me for good in my mind, body, and affairs, and I rightly use it here and now. On the other side of this is affirmations, something I obviously love to do on the channel. I have hundreds of episodes where I explore different affirmations. I find myself to be an affirmation collector, and if you followed my channel, we have explored some amazing affirmations that work like prayers. The one that she recommends that I really like and I plan on experimenting with is just God prospers me now. She explains that someone uses this particular affirmation when they find themselves in deep debt, and then we're able to have a large sale and cover all their debts. So if you find yourself in debt, apply this and put in the comments if it works. But she's saying it takes repetition. And remember, she uses an example of Moses and Jesus going into meditation for 40 days. So this may require 40 days of you relentlessly reciting these affirmations and prayers for it to work. The fourth type of prayer is meditation and silence, and that's where you're listening. You're connecting to this divine power, but you're not telling it what you want. You're not necessarily even talking to it, but you're listening. And the most amazing things can happen when you silence your mind and open yourself up to this higher power. All four prayers are effective and work and should be done together. If you want prosperity, and that may be the reason that you clicked on this video, believe me, it is within your grasp right now. And it is very easy. All you have to do is pray. You can pray and prosper, and if you follow the instructions here, you can find a way to do that. This may take focus, concentrated attention on a singular idea, and also entering into the silence to allow yourself to integrate into the ideas. But don't take this as cliche. And who cares if I've done hundreds of episodes on this? That is only a reflection of its importance because I am regularly reading from New Thought authors. So try it today. Pray. If it's easier for you, then pray to that God. But pray. Say the words out loud. Say them with passion. And then, as Neville Goddard recommends, feel them. Believe them. See the prayer as if it is true. Right now in the moment. Affirm the prayer. Deny anything that's stopping you from getting into that prayer, and enter into silence and integrate and accept this prayer as truth in your life. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.